This is David Risley from Blog Marketing Academy, and you're listening to the Dealer Playbook podcast.
You're dialed in to the Dealer Playbook podcast, where it's all about winning auto dealer strategies that deliver proven results. And now your hosts, Robert Weissman and Michael Cirillo.
Hey there, thanks for joining us on the Dealer Playbook podcast, session number 53, where we feature weekly interviews with elite trainers, speakers, and authors for you, today's automotive professionals. My name's Michael Cirillo, and I'm joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Robert Weissman. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, champ? How you doing, man? I'm chilling like a villain over here.
My gruff sidekick.
My rough sidekick.
Yes. Love it. You know what? We're having so much fun doing the show. Thanks so much for joining us. We love doing this podcast. You know, we had that 2-week hiatus, you know, a little while ago, and Robert and I were like dying, man. We just felt like something was missing from our you know, weekly enjoyment, and it's the show. We've come to find out we got back into it. We've got some incredible guests lined up, such as the one we're going to feature today for you, and we're just having a lot of fun. Robert, man, what do we have coming up? June's a busy month for us. We're going to be at UAAMG here in the next little while.
Yep, that's
looking forward to connecting with all those people, and then
Tracy Myers and his camp. Yes,
that's
definitely.
right. And then for all of you Canadian dealers listening in, I'd love you to join me at the Driving Sales Canadian Dealer Forum. You know, forever I've been kind of an advocate for getting, you know, Canadian specific content happening for Canadian dealers. And I remember the first Driving Sales Executive Summit I attended a few years ago in Las Vegas, and I was like, oh man, you know what? We need something like this, you know, north of the border. And you know what? We've got our events that go on, but they're nowhere. I just feel like, you know, something's missing.
When's that going down?
So that's coming up on June 22nd and 23rd. And you know what? For those of you listening in, hit me up, send me a comment in the show notes, www.thedealerplaybook.com/53, because I want to see if I can hook you up with a pretty freaking incredible VIP discount for that event. So again, if you are a dealer in Canada,
you've joined forces to provide a good deal.
I should say I'm one of the breakout speakers at this event. I'm super excited to be a part of it. It's the inaugural Driving Sales Canadian event, so we're looking to make a big splash here. So those of you listening in, hit me up in the comments, you know, with your contact information, or just let me know that you're interested, and I will reach out to you to hook you up with a VIP discount for that event. We'd love to make it a big smash. Got some incredible speakers, and I think it's just going to be a real hit. So that's coming up again, June 22nd and 23rd in Calgary, Alberta.
We will. And I am personally sending a bill to Driving Sales for that little awesome marketing you did.
I know. I don't know why. I just, you know what? I'm excited. I'm excited that something's happening. They're bringing the show up here, and you know, excited to be a part of it. Speaking, you've definitely got to check out my session when I'm there. It's titled "Don't Wait, Dominate." Dare I say that's the title of a book that I've written, but it's gonna be a really incredible event and an awesome session. So I look forward to you joining me there in Calgary. But you know what? On to the show here.
Okay.
After all that, after these messages, we'll be right back. You know, so our show today, super thrilled to have our guest on today. Guy's name is David Risley. He's made a business out of blogging, and we're super thrilled to bring that information to you listening in, because, you know, Robert, like you know, and like I know, blogging is just one of those things that's really difficult for people to bite into in the automotive space and just find out how to make an efficient use for it. So you're going to hear David,
who's an OG blogger. This guy, I mean, before it was blogging, he was blogging.
Yeah, before there was blogging, was David Risley.
As I say in this session, and I think this is a great punch for him, though. But he's been doing it so long, and like Michael, if we go to like guys like Chris Ducker and stuff like that, they recommend his blogging courses and training nonstop. So like this guy is your favorite blogger's favorite blogger.
That's right. He is the who. Not the who's who, he's the who of blogging. So super excited to jump into this session right now with David Risley. If you got nothing else to bring up, since I took all the time with my marketing, let's dive in.
Let's do it.
Okay, and we're sitting down now with the founder of Blog Marketing Academy, and he's also the host of Coffee Break Blogging, which is a podcast you absolutely need to check out. It's a really cool format. I'm going to turn it over to him and let him describe it, but our guest today is David Risley. Hey, thanks so much for being on the show with us today, Dave.
Thanks so much for having me.
So, Robert actually got me onto your podcast, which is kind of like, it doesn't feel like a podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about what the format is and just tell our listeners about what you do on that podcast?
Sure. So basically, I had a podcast back in the day, and it had a really, really creative title called The Blog Program. One of my best product titles ever. Now, with the podcast, I went into it. I didn't really have the best game plan, so it kind of just dropped. I got really irregular about it, but I wanted to bring it back because I know how effective podcasting can be. So I went with the coffee break blogging model, and essentially what it is a shorter form podcast. It's not interview style, so they tend to be 10 to 15 minutes in length, and they go in a chronological order. So it's basically a course on building an online business from scratch, and we're doing it in, episode format.
Really cool.
Well, I got a question about that now, more so for me, that I'm wondering. So, is this going to have an end date that you'll just keep it up there evergreen and then kind of move on to a different maybe show format under a different title, or do you think it'll just keep plugging away?
For now, I don't have an end in mind. I mean, I am basing it around a 7-stage framework that I set up, and that's more for me than for anybody else, so that I can actually sit down and plan these things in advance. But the thing is, let's be real. There's so many things that one could talk about that even if I get to the end of stage 7, there's still plenty more I could go for.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't have an end in mind at the moment.
Fair enough. So, you absolutely need to check out that podcast, or should I say chronological online course in podcast format. But, Dave, tell us a little bit more about yourself, where you've kind of come from, what you're doing now, and just what it is that you're accomplishing through your Blog Marketing Academy.
Well, I got started back in 1998. I was still in college at the time, and started up with a technology site talking about building computers and upgrades and networking and a bunch of really, really geeky things. And,
Robert?
And I was into
a nerd fest over there, I'm telling you.
Nerd fest, and I was into that stuff back then.
Sorry.
David and I are only used to talking to tech-savvy
people. Yeah, that's the comment about me, yeah.
Right. Yeah, so I was into that stuff back then, and started it up as a hobby primarily just because I thought it was interesting, and never really thought that it would grow into a business. But, with the .com, boom coming up at the late 90s and stuff, people started talking about being able to make money doing this. So one thing led to another. And, to shorten the whole thing down, I did that exclusively for about 10 years before I decided I really wanted to branch out and started my next site, which is what became the Blog Marketing Academy. It actually wasn't called that at first.
So that's where, it was your name, correct?
Yep.
.com.
Yep.
And and if I remember correctly, I mean, you've been blogging since before it was even called blogging, correct?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the basic, framework of what we do, we're putting articles on the internet, So I was doing that back when I had to manually code it in HTML.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I mean, this guy, just for the context that, person listening in, I mean, is some of my favorite bloggers, before I was introduced to you, you were their favorite blogger. That's your new. You're your favorite blogger's favorite blogger. That's your new MO right there.
I'm like
7
the old man.
degrees of David Risley.
Yeah,
love it, man. So it's fair enough to say that you've learned a thing or two about blogging and how to kind of grow and monetize an online business. So let me ask you, in the context of, our audience, car sales professionals, general managers at dealerships, dealer principals, all those sorts of things. We find that blogging is one of those elements of the marketing mix that just kind of get overlooked, and probably from just not really knowing how to execute. So if we had to turn this over to you and say, okay, well, where'd you get started? What was the list of actions that you had to take to kind of get your online business and blogging to where it is, and what really are the benefits of blogging? So I guess two-part question. How'd you get started, and what would you say the main benefits of blogging are?
Well, with that original technology side, I mean, it's funny. I've been asked this question how I got started before, and it wasn't beautiful and chronological in the way that I did that, because at the time, I mean, this stuff was very new and I was kind of feeling my way through it. But essentially, if I had to cast a wide net over the whole thing, I was taking something that people wanted to see on the internet, because at the time there was a shortage of plain English style how-tos when it came to computers, and I supplied it. That's essentially what I did, and it became to be noticed by the tech media at the time. What was the other part of your question? I forgot.
Just, the benefits of that you've seen from blogging.
Yeah, so here's the thing. I mean, blogging is kind of a long-term marketing strategy, but it's very effective because content is what powers the internet. It's what everybody's out there looking for. Nobody is out there looking for ads. They're looking for content. And so the blog happens to be the best delivery mechanism for that. And it's a way to have organic traffic coming to your authority site that you don't have to pay for. Now, I do believe there is definitely a time and place for paying for traffic, but I think we need to have the quote-unquote free way going as well, which would be blogging.
Right. They complement each other.
Absolutely.
So, and I kind of refer to the traffic that gets generated from content marketing, kind of like it's traffic that you don't control per se, because you're throwing out topics. But would you say the objective of blogging is to turn that traffic into something that you own? In other words, list building, making sure that they're opting in for something, and whatnot, to kind of grow your business that way? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, all blogs by nature are going to have a majority of people come to it and immediately bounce off. I mean, that's just human nature. It just kind of is what it is. It's about as predictable as gravity.
Right.
Now, but that being said, the primary purpose of that blog is to get people onto your email list so that you can proactively reach out and get and direct their attention at whatever you want on your control, not on theirs. And then there's also a second list. This is what I call it, which is essentially building up a retargeting list with the blog at the same time. So both of them allow you to reach out proactively and direct them at what you want.
And the thing that I see, applying this directly to dealerships, I think that list, we talk a lot about list building in online marketing and the benefit of that. But when it comes to the car business, I feel like we don't realize that those people aren't just opting in onto a list to get your monthly newsletter per se. Those people should be treated as leads, correct?
Oh yeah, that's exactly what they are. I mean, if your site is set up in such a way to promote your business in any way, shape, or form, then everybody who comes on your list should be looked at as a lead.
Well, yeah, but and how you approach that lead per se would be based off of the offer or the page, the piece of content that drove them to the list. Is that not? Because if somebody's on there and they're looking for information, let's say I see people doing content in automotive that's about like check engine lights and stuff like that. Okay. Standard things, how to change a headlight. Okay. You come to there, like my next move shouldn't be to ask you to do business. Buy a car, because you didn't come on a 2050, like a review page or a review post of a new model year or something. Like somebody that's clicking on that, to me, like that seems more like a buyer,
right?
Like ready to buy a car. But there's also your fixed operations, like your oil changes, your, the maintenance at dealerships is such a big opportunity.
David, how do you find out what topics you should be blogging about?
I keep my ear to the ground. So one of the things that I do is when I send out an email to my list, the return address on that is always something that they can reply to. So I'm not, there's no bounce or, nothing anonymous there. They're actually sending an email to us and we'll answer it. I also sometimes periodically will put a question into that email and just say, hey, in order to answer me, just hit the reply button. So it kind of gets a conversation going that way. I also watch comments on the blog, watch comments on social media, that kind of thing. I also am doing webinars, so I see the types of questions people ask. So it's kind of like a varied approach to getting all that information.
Okay, so and really just making sure that you are interacting with your audience, and asking maybe questions just to get their feedback and gauge, what topics they're wanting to learn more about.
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, what we're doing online is communication. It's just the same as if we were talking to somebody across a desk. It's just that we're doing it over the internet. And when we get stuck in this mindset of talking to the anonymous ether of audience, when we forget that they're actually people, that's when our marketing becomes much less effective. So you should be trying to get two-way conversation going all the time.
This is something I see, like this is a big gap because we've talked about, the purpose of your blog is to get traffic or get new, fresh eyes on your content, or maybe some just returning loyal, followers back on your content. But really the purpose of it is to convert them into a lead of some sort. And Robert, you mentioned that, car shoppers aren't coming just to buy, like, especially if they're looking at a check engine light blog or something that's not related to buying a car. So really the objective once they get on the site is to, dare I use the word bribe them into opting in for something more value so that they then join a mailing list.
Well, that's essentially what it is. I mean, it's a lead magnet. That's what it's typically called. And that lead magnet it's something that they can opt in order to get. It could be a video. It could be a checklist, maybe a checklist on how to do something on their vehicle, whatever it might be. Now, the thing is, when you set up that lead magnet, you set it up so that that the very fact that they wanted it indicates what they're interested in, and then that can dictate the follow-up sequence that they get afterward.
Love it.
Yeah. So, and I think that's a big thing, though, Michael, where you hear that people talking about that. Yeah, we tried some blogging at our dealership, but it really gets no leads. We don't get much from it. And that's because that they're on a blog about change a tire or something. And then your call to action is, check out our inventory.
Well, I think it's changing the way we view leads, because I think traditionally I'm pretty certain that the way we view leads or the way we count leads in the car business is if it's specific to the profit centers that are at the dealership. Oh, it's a credit app. Okay, boom, lead. Oh, we buy cars. This person just wants to sell us their car. That I've seen where people that's not a lead to some dealers. But changing the way we view a lead. No, if you have something relevant, an engaging piece of content, and like what you're talking about, Dave, is bribing them with a lead magnet, so to speak, with something that they would find more value in exchange for their email address. That's also a lead. They may not specifically give you their name or their phone number and best time to contact and what vehicle they're interested in, but they are a lead and you can nurture them. And I love what you just said, by virtue of what they subscribe to, what they're interested in, and you can kind of nurture them from there.
Build a relationship.
Yeah. And build a relationship. Yeah. Love it.
And I think that word relationship is the real big key here. I mean, if all we're concentrating on are the top of the funnel metrics in terms of credit apps or cars or something like that, then it leaves a lot of stuff on the table that's not even being, worked with at all, because it's a little bit short-sighted, and I think a lot of, especially in this business, I would think that a lot of the stuff that we need to think a little bit about that long game, and that's what the relationship comes down to.
And then that just gives you something that you can leverage over and over and over and over again, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you create that relationship with a person, even if they're not going to do business with you for a year, the thing is, if you got that relationship, they'll more likely going to come to you over somebody else, just because that's just the way people tick. They want to go where they're familiar.
So let me ask you this, and then we can move it into the context of the car business. But what would a typical, say I've done a search, I find a blog post by you. What's a typical, like, I guess, funnel conversion path that you would bring me through from your blog that turns me into a subscriber to one of your lists?
Well, like I've got my funnels typically go right into trying to turn them into a customer as quickly as possible. So a typical funnel might be that they come to the Blog Marketing Academy, they can opt in order to get what I call the blog monetization model, which is essentially a business model that we use, or they could get one of the other lead magnets, which is a checklist on what to do with a blog post in order to prepare it in order to get maximum traffic. So those are two different lead magnets. Now, one of them, I think, goes directly into the subscription, which is the Blog Monetization Lab. That's a monthly recurring subscription that they can get into. The other one goes directly into the first front-end offer, which is one of my action plans. So basically, just to back up, essentially, they opt into a lead magnet that puts them on the list, and then the very first page that they see is going to be a very targeted offer that basically they, like Forrest Gump would say, they go together like peas and carrots. You want that lead magnet and that offer that comes after it to go together, so it makes sense. It doesn't blindside them.
Love it.
Okay. Yep. So now let's try to make that in a context for.
Well, I think it's simple. So,
because his offer is saying like the tripwire type. Thing
exactly.
Which they don't have. There's not necessarily with somebody that they're not. Well, I mean, I guess depending on like I said, if somebody comes to a page and they're looking to they're watching a video, or reading a blog post on how to change a headlight, the quick offer could be like, dude, don't do it yourself, man. It only costs this much down here, something like that, right?
You know what? And you might even do something like this. This is coming to me. So, say it is a blog post about a how to check your. How to check what's with the check engine light, or how to check your oil, or any of those things. Your opt-in could be like, get a free oil change on us. They opt in. Once they've opted in and that customer's, effectively inside the dealership getting their oil changed, you could instruct your salespeople from there to start the conversation. Oh, hey, you're driving that. We're looking for a ton of those.
Yeah. That, and not even like and that's really getting me thinking now, because the percentage, the probability
it's getting us thinking here.
Somebody buying, like doing business with your dealership goes up like tremendously if they're currently servicing their vehicle at your dealership.
Yeah, and I just feel like in that model, a ton of people, like even with what you just talked about, David, is you've essentially taken time, right, and put something together, an info product or a checklist. That took you time, and I think people shy away from doing that because they always think in terms of what if. Oh man, what if nobody downloads this, or what if all I do is give away a bunch of free oil changes. But would you agree? I think it's not so much about the time you put into that as much as it is what you execute after the fact.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for one, I would say that the lead magnet is not a time-consuming thing to do.
Okay.
In most cases. The other thing is that, it really does come down to the follow-up. And I mean, if you have a 0% conversion rate, you got to really look at what your sales process looks like, because that wouldn't be very good at all. No. Especially in a service business where you've got face-to-face interaction, it shouldn't be difficult at all to get conversions out of that.
Love it. That. I love it. Yeah, it's getting me thinking. So for those of you listening in, think about this concept of blogging to drive traffic. Would you agree, David, is that the primary purpose of blogging? Are there other purposes of blogging or objectives?
It's primarily to drive traffic. It is an SEO play. It's kind of a long-term play. But but the thing is, if you don't have the blog going on, you've got no authority site, nothing to bring them back, because it's not just about the initial contact with a person. It's also about that ongoing contact with that same person, to bring them back to your site. And then if your site's set up well, then you can lead them into maybe even another lead magnet that's a little bit different than the one they came in the first time. But if you're not doing this type of thing, then you're completely reliant on paying for every single piece of traffic that you get, which That's fine. That works. But I think we need to have this other long game going on so that we build up some leverage.
How do you address the fact that, say we know there's other people online who do similar, things to what you're doing with Blog Marketing Academy. Mm-hmm. And obviously there's car dealers are all very, very similar. What do you say to someone who's maybe reluctant to execute on a blog because they think, well, man, this information's already out there from so many other people? Should you be shying away from that? Is that a legitimate concern? Or what's your take on that? How do you address topics that other people are addressing so that you can still kind of carve in your place into the mix?
Well, a couple of things come to mind. A lot of times with content, it's not just the fact that it was said, it's also how it was said. There's not a lot that I talk about on Blog Marketing Academy that hasn't been said by somebody else somewhere. But at the same time, and the people who come to me are typically more confused than ever as to what they're supposed to do because the material wasn't presented in the most simple, applicable way. So a lot of what I do is taking a complex topic and make it simpler and more applicable. And so that's one angle. You can just basically look at how you're approaching it. That could be different than other places. The other thing that comes to mind is that you can curate content as well, to where instead of creating everything originally, you can put yourself into a position where you are curating the best content out there and bringing that to your blog and republishing it, and adding your own unique twist to it. So, if some headlight changing video or something like that maybe somebody else made on YouTube, there's nothing stopping you from posting it. That person's probably going to appreciate it.
Really good point. And if I may jump in, tell me, David, just for that person listening in, what are some the best practices for when you do curate somebody's content? What are the things you need to make sure that you do instead of just copying and pasting their product on your page? What is the right way to curate?
Well, it depends on the content that it is. I mean, I was just mentioning the YouTube video. I mean, all YouTube videos have an embed code. Mm-hmm. And if they didn't want you to embed it, they would turn it off and make it an unlisted or private video. So the fact that it's there, it's kind of like, yeah, you can use it. Mm-hmm. Just in the nature of the embed, it's going to link to their YouTube channel and everything. So it's not like you're taking anything. It's just there to be used. Yeah. Now, if it's somebody's blog post, then I would not copy and paste that. That would be pretty bad. But what you can do is take a little clip of it, backlink to the original, and then you can turn that into your own piece of content by you putting your commentary on top of it. Yeah.
That same kind of with the video, you would instead of just pasting the video and that be the post itself, you kind of do a little, introduction and your thoughts on why it's valuable.
Oh, yeah. I don't think a blog post that has nothing but a YouTube video would be that. Well, I mean, I'm not going to say it wouldn't be that useful. It's not going to be that useful in the eyes of Google because there's really not much for it to chomp on. So, I mean, I would definitely write some content to go along with it.
Yeah, and it really wouldn't build your authority any further either, would it?
Right. I mean, that's a big reason why, my podcast is primarily me talking. I mean, the part of it is to build me up as the authority. Mm-hmm.
So the thing I love about this is it does break the mold. Everything we've talked about, it breaks the mold with what we're currently working in, which is, Robert, you had mentioned, and David, you kind of brought it full circle with your comments. Robert said traditionally what dealers do is they will blog for the purpose of the whole thing just leads everyone into view our inventory. It's very self-serving content. And like you said, David, that's a very top level, short-sighted strategy, and you're leaving so much on the table. So I think for those listening in, that the objective is to grow your business, but would you agree, David, it's not to just blatantly do this harsh sales pitch? I mean, those lead magnets are for getting leads, and those leads are for building your business, but it's not, hey, buy this, hey, this car, what we're seeing, review of the 2015 Dodge Charger, and then it's the Dodge Charger is the best thing ever and you should buy it from our dealership because and that's
here's
really the tone.
To our Dodge Chargers.
Here's a link to our Dodge Chargers. But it's kind of a softer approach that we're talking about, which is why I love it so much. It's speaking to people about the things they care about, and compelling them, but really getting them to opt in of their own free will and testament to something that would interest them further, and then helps establish your authority and credibility in the marketplace even further as well.
Yeah, you need to meet them where they're at. I mean, if all you're doing is talking about inventory and specials, and you're only going to meet those people who are ready to go buy a car right now. But the thing is, most of the world isn't there yet, but they will be. Yeah. And you've got to build that relationship.
Every day somebody's in and somebody new comes. It's the Ferris wheel. They're getting on and getting off. And when you create content, in my opinion, for the people that are ready to buy, I mean, that's the smallest percentage of your market there is that are ready to buy now.
Well, and further to that, like you said, it's a constant revolving Ferris wheel. A month ago, I wasn't in the market for another vehicle. All of a sudden I'm in the market for another vehicle just because of a simple thought process change. Like, holy crap, I hate, I hate having to borrow somebody's car, or I hate having to do this or whatever. Now I'm in the market, but all I've learned up to this point, being a consumer now, is I know the dealerships that I won't buy from, and it's the ones that didn't give me the information I was looking for.
Right.
So awesome information, David. You know what? In the interest of time, there's so many more questions we could ask you, but for the sake of those listening in, how can they get in touch with you if they've got more questions about blogging and how they can, become an authority on the topic, such as yourself?
Best bet would go right to the Blog Marketing Academy. So that would be blogmarketingacademy.com. And from there, it will take you into the next step.
Love it. Yep. And are you on Twitter or the Facebook or anything like that?
I am, yeah. It's what is it? My handle, David Risley. My handle.
Oh, right, my name.
Super active.
Yeah, well, it's funny. It's my usage of Twitter has actually evolved over the last few years. It is a little bit more of a megaphone now for me, I'll be honest. I don't know if that's the right way to go, but I just look at it from a perspective of best places to put my time, and that's kind of how I'm looking at it right now.
And that's why you're on here as the your favorite blogger's favorite blogger, not the Twitter, not the social Twitter guy, right?
Right.
Yep. No, guys, everybody check it out, man. It's one of my favorites, definitely.
All right, man. David, thanks so much for being on the show with us today. We greatly appreciate it. Tons of value, and would love to have you on again.
Cool. Not a problem. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, bro. All right, and there you have it, live and direct. Your favorite blogger's favorite blogger, David Risley. Michael, I've been listening to this guy for a long time. I know you've been checking him out here and there, but what'd you think?
Yeah, you know what? Super. There's no doubt that this guy knows what he's talking about, right? I mean, like we talked about pre-show, he's the who of blogging. He's been doing it forever before it was even called blogging. And I think the thing I enjoyed about him is, he's very open about the fact that he's not one of these gurus that had this like big secret that he figured out and it turned into this,
millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to teach you.
No, it's like, here's a real tried, tested, and proven way that you can use blogging to build your authority and to, reach out to customers. But then it's really what we talked about inside of the blogging, getting people to opt in for something that's valuable and changing the way that we think about those people. They're not just newsletter subscribers, dude. Nobody wants your freaking newsletter. Your newsletter sucks. It's opting in for value.
Yeah.
And those are leads.
I'm sorry, Michael. And they stop they don't get that the conversation stops online immediately when you stop speaking to them the same way that you were. So if they're there, they read this information, like we said, and then you're giving them a different offer or a different opt-in, or they do opt in, and then immediately somebody that opt in for an oil change info or something maintenance wise, you're saying great big sale on cars. That's the fastest way to stop the conversation, basically.
And that's what we're doing. It's like, great, we have one subscriber to our newsletter. Dude, nobody cares about your newsletter. Like I said, your newsletter sucks. People want information, and you heard David talk about that. People aren't going online to look at ads. They're going online to, gather and consume information, look for content.
Like that one.
And we're treating currently the dealers that I see that are blogging or are doing social media or any of those things, they're treating it like advertising, because we have this instinct in us where it's like, if I'm not promoting, if I'm not advertising in the traditional sense, hey, check this out, low kilometers, lady driven, it's not worth it. But we've flipped that on its head, and guys like David and the other guests that we've had on the show have flipped that on its head and proven, no, wait, if you provide people value first and then give them more value and get them to opt in for more value, you absolutely need to think of those people as leads, because you can nurture them into your store. And like you heard him say, it doesn't take a lot of money, a lot of time, and it doesn't take a lot of time most of the time to put this stuff together. So
doesn't take a lot of time most of the time.
How many more times can I say time? Anyways, so super,
I'm out of time,
super incredible. Yeah, we're out of time. We hope you found value in this. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, check out the show notes, www.thedealerplaybook.com/53. And you know what? Since we're giving away a bunch of stuff today, like VIP discounts to conferences and stuff like that, I'm going to throw in there, check out thedealerplaybook.com/dominate book, because I want you guys to opt into my new book that I've got dropping. Is going to bring all of the information we talk about here on the Dealer Playbook.
Well, here, I got a question for you regarding that.
Let's do that.
How many copies are you going to give away free to everybody, to our listeners here on the show, once you get them all in hand? How many do you plan on handing out for?
Yep. I'll tell you what. So when we launch this book, people are going to have a certain time period where they can actually get the book for free. I think it's 5 days. I'm going to be giving this book away for free. So there is absolutely no reason why you wouldn't go over to www.thedealerplaybook.com/dominate book to opt in. And I'm going to send you out a notification when the book formally launches, so you can go over and get your free copy of it. That's going to be a free digital copy. But you know what? This book is going to help you guys just absolutely freaking obliterate your competition when it comes to online marketing, and teach you some strategies, okay? Not theory, but real strategies that you can use to rise above the clutter and start thriving online. No more of this complaining about the economic downturn of 2008 and how online barely works and all I need is a website or all I need is PPC. I'm going to show you, I'm going to walk you through how you can actually put all of these pieces of the marketing mix together very simply so that you can dominate the market, okay? And then after that, there'll only be one thing left to do, and that is to don't wait, dominate. In other words, execute like your life freaking depends on it. So check that out. Again, I'm super excited about it. Super excited to be speaking in Calgary. Super excited to be back with you, Robert, in person at UAAMG in North Carolina. Shout out to Mr. Tracy Myers. But again, guys, thanks so much for listening to the Dealer Playbook. We appreciate you guys so much, and we'll talk to you next time.
See ya.